Okay, welcome everyone. I cannot see your faces, but I'm so excited to be here and to be moderating this discussion. I'm joined by Kelsi Ivanoff from Native Peoples Action, and today we are going to be talking about empowering Alaska Native voices and what it takes to build the next generation of Native leaders. So my name is Micah Standing Soldier. I use she, her pronouns. I am Oglala Lakota. I grew up in South Dakota and I currently live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Before I properly introduce Kelsi, I would love to share just a little bit of a background about Advance and the work that we do. So, Advanced Native Political Leadership, or Advance, is the first and only national Native-led organization dedicated to building political power in Native communities. And we take a holistic approach to create an ecosystem that focuses on leadership recruitment and support, civic engagement, data and research, and national coordination. We believe that when Native peoples and communities have access to national networks, innovative tools for organizing, strong voter engagement strategies, and pathways to leadership, we actually strengthen the health and well-being of all of our communities. Now, Native political engagement has been deeply limited by historical, legal, and modern barriers. And this is especially true for Native women. And because of these barriers, Native peoples remain drastically underrepresented in government at every level. According to the 2020 US Census and our own research, Native Americans, Alaskan Natives, and Native Hawaiians make up just 0.07% of elected officials, despite being at least 3.4% of the total US population. To reach true representational parity, we need to elect more than 17,000 Indigenous leaders across the 520,000 elected offices in this country. In Alaska specifically, Indigenous peoples represent 24.4% of the total population and only 0.03% of elected officials. So to reach parity, we need to elect 417 Native leaders at offices across the state of Alaska. So, a cornerstone of this effort to increase representation is the Native Leadership Institute. And this is Advance's training program. This is designed by and for Indigenous peoples. And NLI offers a culturally grounded cohort-based experience for Native leaders who are ready to step into elected office. And over the course of an intensive multi-day training, participants gain practical skills and tools needed to run successful campaigns, all while being rooted in shared Indigenous cultural values. At Advance, we are committed to creating opportunities for development, connection, and visibility for Native leaders. And we're working to change the narrative, build power, and take action so that Native voices are heard at every level of leadership. And as the National Program Manager of Strategic Recruitment and Partnerships, I create strategic initiatives to identify and build strong recruitment pathways for our Native Leadership Institute programs. And I also collaborate with organizations across the country, like Native Peoples Action, to develop community partnership programs aimed at identifying rising Native leaders and guide them on their path to office. So, with all of that, it's my pleasure to introduce Kelsi Ivanoff. Kelsi is the Communications and Indigenous Engagement Manager at Native Peoples Action, located in Alaska. Kelsi comes from a diverse background in fisheries, marketing, engineering, nonprofit, and government, and she most recently served as the city administrator and mayor of her hometown. Kelsi has worked and advocated at the local, regional, state, and international level, and she also sits on the Southern Norton Sound Fish and Game Advisory Council and the Federal Subsistence Seward Peninsula Regional Advisory Council. Welcome, Kelsi. I'm so happy that you're here. We're going to dive straight in. So, can you share a little bit more about the mission of Native Peoples Action and your background, your role at NPA, and why you think it's essential for Native voices to be represented in government?
Yeah, Bola Gibski. Welcome, everyone. Um, the NPA is dedicated to strengthening Native peoples, uplifting their voices, protecting our ways of life. Our goal is to restore our inherent rights to hunt, fish, harvest, gather, trap, share, and have ceremony, as well as manage and steward our homelands. We do this through ensuring Alaska Natives are heard in all levels of policymaking and advocating for the wellness of our peoples and our ways of life. It's essential our voices are represented in government because this is where decisions are being made regarding our ways of life, and we cannot have this being done without our voices and our values. Our position is wherever decisions affect our ability to live our way of life, we need to be at the table. And we need Alaska Natives serving office to set good policy for our communities and our people. I started working for NPA because I felt pulled to work directly for our Native people and their mission. Everything aligns completely with my values, and I'm super excited to be. I just started a couple months ago, and I'm really excited to be working with them and for our people.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Um, so the nation is currently navigating the aftermath of a challenging election season, to say the least. And as we look ahead to the coming years under a Trump administration, what's on your organization's mind? Like, can you talk about some of the Alaska Native candidates or races or anything that excited you about this election season?
We're focusing on keeping our momentum going. We felt like we had a lot of work done under this current one, made a lot of headway, and we're going to be celebrating wins no matter how big, how small they might be. For example, in October, we had 3 seats were added to the Federal Subsistence Board and dedicated completely to Alaska tribal members. We're looking for Native representation to partner with and support. We're looking for tribally supportive lawmakers and cabinet members who will work with us and our communities. And we're thinking about the importance of unity and how we can work together against the system that has always worked against us. We've done this before, and we could do it again.
I love that. And you mentioned unity, so that's kind of leads into the next question of how can Native leaders play a role and add their voices to this moment?
Like I said, the number of Alaska Native people running for office is a great accomplishment. There was quite a few candidates, and I think we had 3 Alaska Native women win. Because we have open primaries, it was really exciting to see everyone who was able to file for office. Before this election, Maxine Dibert was the only Alaska Native woman in the legislature, and now we have 3, and we're happy to not only see more representation, but more support for what she was already working on and what everyone can work together on in the next few years. And because being a Native person in the legislature is hard work, it's emotionally, physically, and mentally taxing. And they're living away from home for months, working in an often toxic environment. And it doesn't mean just good representation for our communities, but it means these individuals in Juneau will be able to find the support with one another in meaningful ways outside of the capital. And I think leaders can uplift people who have stepped up, whether they've won or lost, encouraging them and showing support as they begin their work or as they prepare to run again. It really goes a long way. And support the people who did win their seat, those who are representing. Our work doesn't end when Alaska Native leaders are elected. Our work continues in supporting them, supporting their staff when they're writing legislation and when they need to, testimony and support through their letters.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And you have this framework where a lot of these incredible initiatives and this leadership starts, right? And then you have to have that momentum to keep it going. That makes a lot of sense. So how do you see some of the traditional practices like hunting, fishing, and land stewardship? How are those impacted by policy today?
Our practices are, to be frank, negatively impacted by policy today. We see people being fined for carrying out our traditions, for putting food on their tables. Our way of life is more sustainable than that of the Western, and lawmakers, I think, need to realize that that's all we're trying to do. We constantly have policy working against us.
Mhm. What role can Native leaders play in safeguarding these practices at the legislative level or local levels?
They need to keep emphasizing the value in traditional knowledge to guide policy, um, and work towards decriminalizing our people for simply trying to live off the land, trying to put food on their table. It's what we've done since time immemorial. For example, at the federal level, management consistently supports large-scale industrialized fishing and fishing that detrimentally affects our communities and the salmon returning to our rivers. The Magnuson-Stevens Act, the law that governs these large-scale fisheries, doesn't allow for tribal voices or traditional knowledge, which is the best science we have to guide these decision-making processes.
Yeah, and building off of that, how do those values like community wellness, environmental stewardship, that knowledge that has been, built over thousands and thousands of years, how does that inform and strengthen policy?
Our values have guided our people for thousands of years, and because of them, we've sustained this life and persevered to continue these ways of life. I think that speaks for itself on why our values can guide policy to ensure our ways of life will continue for generations to come. And where we see challenges is the incorporation of story-guided values into the Western framework. We all know communities pass down values and laws through storytelling and song and dance and the actions of living in direct relationship with the land and water. Um, our laws and our values weren't written down. And while we don't have to completely conform to Western framework, it's important for the Native community to identify our laws and our values and write them down and pass this knowledge down for our own community and for the laws and values to inform our current systems.
I love that, the way that you live your values in such a actionable way that and I love that you said it's not written down, but that is something that should be informing things moving forward. Shifting a little bit, what are some key qualities or experiences that you believe Alaska Native individuals should have or develop to run for office at all levels?
Yeah. This, I mean, there's so many that you can think of that you should possess or that you want your lawmakers, but I feel like a lot of it comes down to patience and understanding. We live and abide by a system that constantly works against us, and understanding processes, especially within government, take time. So having the patience to follow through with these lengthy processes and understanding every side of each argument and taking those into consideration before making your own informed decisions. I think having experience testifying, lobbying, advocating is key because you need to understand the way these processes work to successfully inform and have an impact on policy. We also need people who live by our values that we just talked about, who are guided by their communities, their elders, and will have that strong voice that's coming from deep within. We need people who have a love and our care for our communities to bring our knowledge systems and our ways of doing business to legislature, and people who have grit. This is this is good work, but it's really difficult work. Even just as mayor and city administrator in local government was hard. So I cannot imagine what it's like at the state level or the federal level. So having, being strong and being able to take hits and you need that foundation rooted in your values um, to be able to see change at the state and federal levels and make change.
Thank you for sharing that. I wonder if you could expand a little bit on your background as mayor and sort of what that journey was like and some of the lessons that you've learned when you were in that position.
Yeah, that was really short-lived. I actually ended up stepping down to become our city administrator. Um, I have gone through all these different fields of work, and my ultimate goal has always been to work for Native people, and I always kind of indirectly did so. And I found that in the positions where I was working directly for our people, I was the most fulfilled and happiest. Um, and it just kind of happened when I was a mayor that we needed a city administrator. And since I was already doing the work pretty much, I decided to take on that role. And it was like I was talking about, it's really hard to work for your people because you're going to get, I think, because of that comfort, people aren't afraid to tell it how it is and give you their opinion. And I think that's going to happen at any level, and being able to take those without taking it personally, and really take those hits without letting it dull your light, you know. It was a good experience, really good experience, but I was just looking, I guess, for a broader work, helping Alaska Native people as a whole. So it was a really good experience working for my community and my hometown, and the sense that I was kind of giving back to my community.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Along that role, you've touched on some of this, but what advice would you give to someone who's just starting to consider a leadership role?
This leadership training coming up is a really good way. Um, since there will be so many different leaders, that'll have different levels of expertise, across a pretty broad curriculum. I think that that alone will give you really good tools to be successful running. Um, and yeah, I think that that one's a good step in the right direction.
Thank you for the plug. Um, Additionally, how can folks who are wanting to step into leadership roles, what are some ways that they can find mentors or allies? Like, what does the support system look like to help them on their journey?
I think before you can do that, I think really considering and establishing why you want a leadership role is key before even, yeah, before even doing so. Because the people that will back you are going to be the people who align with your values and can work with you to strengthen those. Um, Doing your research and who those people might be amongst our current leaders, leaders in your own community. Um, it doesn't have to be state leaders, it can be your mayor or your school board member, or anyone serving the public in any way is going to be a good resource. And to not be afraid to reach out. I think people in these positions are really willing to help. If they're serving in public office and they're wanting to help their people, they're going to want to help others, follow in the path that they have gone down.
Thank you. So as we think about like what how people can take action and specifically how Native leaders can move, how can Native leaders and organizers use their platforms to educate others about the importance of local elections and similarly the impact that they have on Native communities?
Alaska is small, and whether you realize it or not, as a leader, you have a far greater and I think deeper reach than anywhere else. You have the power to influence and to encourage people to vote and to remind people that government goes far beyond things like, when you think of the government, you think of DOT or public assistance or any of those more common divisions when you think of state government. But the government, unfortunately, decides when and where we can hunt, fish, gather. These are essential elements of our ways of life, and who we have in these public offices, who is deciding these things for us. In our day and age, social media is huge, and I think allies and influencers can use their platforms to educate and enlighten people on this. Really bringing awareness to the government is a lot bigger than I think people realize. And most importantly, we need to work together. We need to work with one another and unite our voices. The systems love to divide Alaska Native voices, whether it's in fisheries or land policy. And I think we really need to get past that. Um, the one issue where there is broad Native support is the importance of protecting our ways of life, our ability to hunt, fish, and harvest. And our organizations, our leaders, and our people need to come together and strategize on how we can pass good legislation and set good policy and get Alaska Native people elected.
Are there additional ways? Like, it say someone wants to be a Native leader, but maybe they want to join a campaign or they want to volunteer for some type of cause. What kind of ways can folks kind of slowly go into the waters of organizing and leadership?
I think we have the Rio team, the Rural Indigenous Outreach. Um, and yeah, like you said, volunteering. I think some people just even getting familiar with the election process, local elections, you can volunteer to actually you get paid to run to work the polls and in those spaces you will see these people who come in and have something to say, and those are the people you want to reach out to and really just pick their brain, and even just in short conversations and passing when you're at the polls, it's those people who are coming out to vote usually have themselves educated in what we're voting on, and um just starting to figure out, and like how I was talking about figuring out your why, you want to figure that out before you start putting yourself out there.
That makes sense. Um, what are some of the ways that you'd like to see allies and accomplices take action, non-Native folks that are wanting to support Native communities and leaders? What are some of the ways that they can get involved?
Uplifting Native voices, featuring Native voices that support the cause that you are working for and working toward. If it aligns with our values, we want to work with you. We're always looking for people to partner with and it doesn't have to be Native people. If you want to help us protect our ways of life, if you want to help us, just making our voices stronger. I think that, um, like I was talking about social media goes a long way, just featuring people on these platforms, and really they have a lot of people in, the Alaska Native community have so many good, strong things to say. And hearing these through different platforms is will benefit everyone.
Thank you for sharing that. Additionally, and you touched on this a little bit, what are some steps that we can take to make sure that Native voices are central to shaping policies for future generations?
Keep running for office and don't be discouraged. If you don't make it on the first try, just keep trying again. It's like that in whether it's public office, whether it's your corporation board, any type of seat, just don't get discouraged. Putting your name out there is the first step and reaching out. We have the power to make change, and I think Alaska's in a really good place to make a big shift, and we need to stay informed on what's going on in Juneau and DC, and even at the local level, the municipal level, just staying informed. And MPA is currently recruiting a governmental affairs director, and this role is partly dedicated to following legislation that affects our ability to live our ways of life, which will help us stay informed, giving testimony, meeting with legislators, and normalizing the idea that it's in the state's best interest to incorporate Indigenous values and law into policy. Um, our ways of life are worth fighting for. They must be protected for our future generations. And I want my daughter to be able to hunt and fish like I did growing up. But with the way things are going, that won't be the case, and surely not for her kids. And I think to fight for our rights and to protect our ways of life is doing so for our kids.
Thank you. Think that's really powerful. And when you were talking about staying informed, what kind of channels are available for folks to stay informed if they're looking to, keep up on policy or future legislation? What are some of the ways that folks can be involved in that?
We actually NPA keeps it's called a Powell calendar, Protecting Our Ways of Life calendar, that has all the meetings that we, like all the Board of Fish, Board of Game, North Pacific Fishery Management Council, all those types of meetings that are being held that dictate our ways of life. We keep a calendar of all of that. And we try to keep people informed as well. Um, but really keeping an eye on what your local community is doing, and then your legislator, like your representatives and your senators, what they're doing. Um, is really important too, and making sure, if they have something that you don't disagree with, they're always accepting letters and always willing to work with communities.
Thank you. I'm sure that's helpful for folks who really want to get involved but aren't really sure where to start. Um, One of the last couple things is when you think about future generations, and we talked about this a little bit, what are you excited for in 2025? Like what initiatives, what sort of like movement, what kind of power building is happening in Alaska?
I think it was just really exciting to see how many Native people were running for office. And I feel like, and people in my generation, I think the shift of generations of, the younger ones kind of coming up and stepping in and being able to learn from the generation above us and having that good balance is, I think that's where Alaska is. And I really like being able to, we have a lot of good elders that we can learn from. Then we have some, in the middle generation. And um, I think being in my position in my age, I think that's another reason I felt comfortable moving into my position is because feeling that support from multi-generational support. And that seems to be the shift that is happening in Alaska. And it's really exciting.
Um, Moving forward on that, what are some things you're excited about for the future generations to come? What are you excited about maybe in, like you said, your daughter's generation, or what's exciting you about the future?
I think seeing the passion and the recognition that we as Native people have and really taking our power back to make change and to run for office and seeing people like names I recognize in these leadership positions and these in public office is what I'm most excited about.
Thank you. That is all of the really tough questions that I have for you, and I'm going to reward you with some less tough questions now. Um, but before I do that, is there anything that you would like to say or any words of wisdom you'd like to leave folks with? Anything that you think is important for Native leaders or future Native leaders, folks in Alaska, anything like that that you think is important for them to hear right now?
I think just put yourself out there. I had no idea what I was doing stepping into my last roles, and it was scary, but good things come from I guess good things come from that. It's scary to step into those types of things, especially when you feel unsure of yourself, whether you can do it. And almost always, it's every experience is a learning experience, no matter your age, no matter what experience level you have. And just taking that leap, that first step is the hardest part. And once you find if you have that passion and that drive, I think you will do well.
Thank you. So we're going to move into some lightning round questions, and these are just some questions for you personally. So winter is often seen as a time for slowing down and reflection. So how do you personally embrace rest and recharge during this season? For example, this is kind of not, doesn't seem like for most people to be restful or recharging, but I like to cold plunge in the lake during the winter. It's just like a forced mindfulness, and I just find it very relaxing. Not at first, but after a couple minutes in the water, I do. So maybe you have one that more people can relate to.
I don't know. Uh, to be honest, winter is kind of tough for me, and I think it is for many of us in Alaska. I mean, I was just telling you the sun is about to set, and it's only 3 o'clock, and so that darkness and that just the weather. It's been windy here for days, and I don't mean like breezy, like it's been nonstop wind, like blow your truck off the road almost. What happened to me this morning? So it's hard. But I remind myself to listen to my body. Like if it wants to rest, just rest. It's okay if you want to take a nap after work and it's dark outside anyways, you might as well just do it. So I do feel like I allow myself to rest more, and I think as I'm getting older, that's a really good thing to learn to listen to your body. And I've just been really embracing the time I have with my daughter's home a lot more. We're just kind of homebodies in the winter and just really embracing that time with her. And because she is getting older too, and she's gonna get to that point where she doesn't want to spend every minute with her mom. Her mom won't be super cool anymore at some point. So really, really just cherishing these moments that I get to spend with her.
I love that. And yeah, in Minnesota, we don't get a ton of sunlight either. So it is helpful to have people there to share that with you. Um, Second and last question. If you could download any skill straight into your brain, kind of like a software update, what skill would it be and why?
This would be time management for sure. Um, I am not the greatest, and I'm really good at doing things super last minute and under pressure. So if I could program my brain to not procrastinate, that would definitely reduce some stress in my life. But it makes me really good with deadlines, but that shouldn't be the positive side to it. So yeah, time management.
That is a great skill to have, and I think a lot of people would echo that. Um, Well, thank you so much, Kelsey, for joining me and for sharing your insights. And thank you to everyone who tuned in this evening to learn about Kelsey and about the importance of empowering Native voices and the incredible work that Native Peoples Action is doing to enhance representation and prioritize Indigenous communities. Kelsey mentioned this before, and if you aren't already in the know, then Advance and Native Peoples Action, we are actually co-hosting the second Alaska-focused Native Leadership Institute training program. This is next spring from April 1st to the 6th in Anchorage, Alaska. Our application deadline is January 31st, 2025, so you still have time. So for folks watching, if you are interested in attending or know someone who should attend, you can find more information on our website at advancenativepl.org or at nativepeoplesaction.org. Thank you all again so much, Wopi Latanka, and have a wonderful evening.